So ChatGPT was created by OpenAI. So OpenAI is developing a lot of AI tools. They're known as a nonprofit, but I feel like they're probably not a nonprofit, but it's ran by a guy that used to run Y
Wait,
Combinator,
is it
which
a non? It's a nonprofit?
yeah, it's labeled as a nonprofit. Sam Alt,
Seriously, I didn't know that because I
check it
know
out.
like Microsoft put in billions of dollars into it.
Google it. Google it. You can correct me if I'm wrong. So Sam Altman, who used to run Y Combinator, which is, they were the accelerator that funded, or incubator, however you want to think of them. They funded like Dropbox, Airbnb in the early days. Sam Altman used to be president of Y Combinator. He runs OpenAI, and they created this Chat GPT-3 GPT-3 thing last year, which is where you see a lot of tools like was not Jarvis, Jasper.ai, for example. And I think a lot of these AI writing tools that help you like create captions or blog posts and things like that. That was kind of the first iteration, right? And now you see people creating SaaS, UIs around them. Now, ChatGPT, what it basically is it's like an assistant. So you can ask a question like, what is the meaning of life? Or like, who are the best marketers in the world? I actually asked it this question yesterday. I said, what are the best marketing podcasts? And funny enough, it listed Marketing School as the number one of the first podcasts to check out for best marketing podcasts. So when AI recognizes game, you can trust it. So
That's right.
yeah.
So I looked up if it's a nonprofit, and there's some areas that say it's a nonprofit, but then there's some pages that say, like on their blog, we've created OpenAI LP, a new capped profit company that allows us to rapidly increase our investments.
Capped profit. Yeah, man.
Yeah. So, it probably is a nonprofit. There probably is some for-profit component. We're not 100% sure on how it works. Either way, they're doing some really cool stuff. When I'm hearing from really random strangers, like just random people who have nothing to do with tech, just consumers, everyday people that are like, oh yeah, I use this. I use some of their stuff they're talking about OpenAI just in general, to tell them to write a letter to my dad in, I don't know, German, and tell him how thankful I am to my father. And then it writes a whole essay. It's kind of cool, right? It's really changing how people are communicating. It's making life a lot easy. I think it's going to be amazing for marketers. But I think it's not there yet. 5-10 years from now, for sure it'll be there, and it can probably improve how most humans write. Maybe the creativity portion will get better. Time will tell on that. It just probably won't even take 5-10 years. Probably within 2-3 years, you'll see a lot of big strides in it, which will make content a lot better. What I'm curious to see is what Google does with AI, because they have so much data. I bet you their version of AI is probably going to blow out almost everyone else. I could be wrong on this.
There's a lot of examples online and on the implications of this, and people are saying Google's going to die or whatever. Basically, when you search for, let's say, a line of code, right? Let's say, or you search for like an expression or something like that, Google will usually return you like a feature snippet and list like 4 or 5 different bullets, and then they'll kind of tell you to go visit the page or whatever. ChatGPT actually provides the complete answer. So when it comes to coding related answers, they'll provide you the complete answer. So when you think about Google's job being able to organize the world's information or provide the best answer, ChatGPT in some cases is doing a better job. And so there's a chance that Google, quote unquote, gets disrupted. But to Neil's point, Google has put so much money into this stuff. And I think they might have put money into to OpenAI as well. Here's the thing. People are thinking, oh, like I can use these tools to, write content for me and write endless content. Here's the thing. These Google or Microsoft or whatever, they actually have the tools to detect whether a piece of content is fake or not. So you have to that's for a whole nother podcast idea. But I'm just saying, for you guys right now that are thinking about, oh, I'm just going to use this to rewrite a bunch of content and it's going to be fine, I'm going to get a lot of traffic. Not exactly the case. The other thing I want to call out too is, in terms of use cases, I just feel like it's a lot easier to use a chat assistant to write captions, right? So I'm like, okay, give me the top marketing trends. I literally did this, a week ago, and I said, give me the top marketing trends. Okay, write me 5 headlines for the first trend. Okay, it might be on like AI or something like that, and then it'll give me, a bunch of topic ideas, right? And it'll write really good headlines as well. So I think you can use it to conquer writer's block. You can use it to ask a bunch of questions, or if you're stuck on anything, it'll help you there. Or if you want to use it to expand on an answer, it's certainly helpful. To Neil's point too, Sam Altman also said that we're not quite there yet, right? It's probably a 2 to 3 year journey. And a lot of the answers that it'll give you, it seems like it's right because they write it so confidently. The AI will write it so confidently when it's actually in fact wrong. So you're going to have to fact check your answers too. The final thing I'll say too is, there's an engineer that works at Microsoft. He says in the next 2 to 3 years, he believes that something like this can overtake Google. So Google just needs to make sure that they don't get overtaken. That's all.
Yep. If you haven't checked out OpenAI and all the stuff they have, including ChatGPT, make sure you check it out.
We want to talk about how you can use it for marketing in this pod. So Neil, you want to go first?
Yeah, you can ask it to create essays for your little notes. So here's what I mean. Essays, I would use the word notes more than essays, but here's what I mean. Let's say you have customers. You can ask them to write an appreciation note and how you appreciate them as a customer, and then you can send it off. You can also use it to potentially help you communicate with customers. Imagine this inside a chat bot talking to your customers and answering their questions. So that way you can boost conversions, but you don't actually have to man it with a human, which just saves you money and hopefully increases conversions, assuming the bot is actually responding with the correct responses.
Yeah. So one thing you can do is with ChatGPT for marketing is you can use it to create outlines, right? So I can say, write an outline, write a YouTube outline for the latest marketing trends. And I can see it outline a couple of things, and then I can ask it to elaborate on point 1, point 2, point 3. And so then all of a sudden I just have this thing to work off of. I might get me like 70, 80% of the way there. I might need to edit some of the things as well, but at least it saves me a lot of time. That's the whole idea with ChatGPT at the end of the day, right? So that's one example. I was actually eating lunch yesterday and I was watching YouTube, and I watched this video of this guy using ChatGPT to create a script, and then he used one of those video tools to basically create a video from scratch. And I'm just like, whoa, like,
yeah, it looks real.
And it looks real. And in that case, like you're not going to get filtered for duplicate content there because you're actually making an original video.
Yeah. Now imagine if people use that deepfake technology, you're there, and then use a ChatGPT to start talking as you, which is kind of cool. I see people really doing it, and it can also help build your personal brand, help you create more social content. I think it's going to be really cool. Do I think it's amazing? Yes. Do I think it's perfect and great right now? No, but I think it will if you give it a few years.
Agreed. And I would also say I actually watched another video yesterday on how someone was using it to create landing pages. And these landing pages were no joke. I wish I could pull it up here, but they looked really good. Like it's just like it's stuff you would pay thousands of dollars for, like really epic landing pages. I'm like, whoa. So I can see that in the next couple of years, like from a UI UX standpoint, you're probably going to be able to save a lot of money. One final thing I'll say from my side is if you have a lot of data, my guess is ChatGPT, like the way they're going to monetize is, I mean, they're going to monetize on like credits, right? They're going to charge for like an API. If you're like a business, you can basically connect your data with ChatGPT. And so let's use Uber Suggest as an example, right? So Neil's SEO software, he has a ton of data in there, but you can use ChatGPT to query questions about maybe your own traffic, like, hey, which pages are getting the highest conversions in this period of time? Or, you know, where do I have the most seasonality, or which pages have the most opportunity from a conversion rate, you know, optimization standpoint, which pages are trending, right? And so to be able to ask that, like, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to loop this in with Google Analytics as well. I believe long-term, whoever has the most proprietary data and they're going to be able to feed it into tools like this, they're going to be able to win. So that's a very like, you know, if you do happen to have that, it's worth taking a look at. I was telling Neil, when we started recording for this session, we typically will batch record. And for this session, the majority of the headlines were created by AI. And so what I basically did was I went to ChatGPT and I said, hey, write me 10 catchy podcast headlines for marketing trends, right? And then basically just pumped out a couple. It just like, and then like that was it. And then I maybe spent like another minute or two kind of updating them. And basically when we started recording today, Neil might have adjusted like 1 or 2 titles, and then we just went at it. So ultimately we saved a lot of time.
Yeah. The next thing you can use it for is if you can end up teaching it, it can be like a live chat assistant on your website to help you answer people's questions, answer the objections, and generate more sales. What's really cool about OpenAI, the company that's releasing all this AI type of stuff, their models can be taught whatever you want and they can adapt. It allows it so that way, you know, it's like when people put those chat widgets on their website, the thing that sucks about them is that automated responses have nothing to do with usually what people are looking for. And it's very rare that you can actually have a human there 24/7 unless you have the capital or the manpower. But this can solve a lot of those issues and help you boost conversions.
Yeah, I'd actually be keen to see, Neil, when you hook in like OpenAI with the data that you have on Answer to Public and Uber Suggest, I think it's going to be pretty powerful just to be able to ask it questions there. So I'm actually keen to know. Now, number 3 from my side is any form of social media post, right? So it could be a Twitter thread, so like a tweet thread. It could be a LinkedIn post. You can basically say, hey, write me a LinkedIn post based on this. And I can basically take a blog post that we might have had or a transcript from this podcast and say, hey, make this into like a 500 word post, or make this into a 10 tweet thread, right? And so you can ask it to be very specific. I can even say, for an episode like this one, I can say, hey, condense this into 100 words or so and make it into a meta description, or like come up with like, 5 titles in relation to like the following, and I just cut and paste. So there's a lot that you can do there. Was that number 3?
Yeah, that was number 3.
Cool.
Number 4, we've been using it for actual thank you notes. Really great way in marketing to show appreciation is thank you notes, and it works great for that. Sometimes you have to adjust it a little bit here and there, but sending thank you notes to customers, clients, coworkers, colleagues, whoever you want to end up sending it to. And we've been having a few of the clients that we work with that send like gift baskets and stuff like that, which is actually their business, like sending out gift baskets. You can end up trying to help create customized notes, because a lot of the people who buy gift baskets are corporations. So a corporation may buy like 20, 30, and then you can send them a customized note using it. And people love it. That those little experiences cause them to come back and then become a repeat customer.
Number 5, last but not least, and by the way, on that note, before I go to number 5, replying to comments too. And so you can literally like have a VA do it and just like, hey, go to my LinkedIn or go to my Twitter or whatever, use ChatGPT and just use that to reply to comments. And then now you don't even need to worry about someone being a native English speaker, because they could just cut and paste and ask questions to ChatGPT. So number 5, last but not least, is scripts. And so YouTube scripts, right? Usually when I script, it takes me a long time and I'll get like, I guess YouTuber's block or whatever, but this makes it a lot easier. And I'm not saying it's perfect. It might get me like 70 or 80% of the way there when it comes to scripting, but that time that I save, it's so worth it at the end of the day. So as of this recording, ChatGPT is still free, but they're spending like $3 million plus a day just to run it. So I don't think that can stay freer much longer. So, and I think Google's version of ChatGPT will be coming out soon. That's one of our predictions. Neil and I, for the last couple of sessions, we have leveraged ChatGPT to help us shorten the time it takes for us to come up with titles. Well, let's jump into it to kind of give our experience, because today we tried to do it and it didn't quite work out for us.
Well, we've been doing it for a little bit now, and I would say overall we've gone probably 40 plus title ideas from ChatGPT. And at the beginning, the titles were fresh, they weren't bad. But over time, even when we're using different keywords and giving them more variables so that way they can help us create better titles, the quality isn't there. The problem Eric and I are having is when you use ChatGPT at the beginning for little things like titles or even content, it's not bad at the beginning because it's new, it's fresh. But what's happening is over time, the quality isn't up to our standards, because all the good stuff we're picking at the beginning, and we're finding that their system isn't able to continually produce new good stuff. A lot of what they're producing is just regurgitated, which is not really working out for us. And it wouldn't work out for most businesses, because if you just create the same regurgitated content that everyone else is doing, how are you going to expect the views, the listens, the downloads, the likes, the shares? And no one really cared for regurgitated content. It doesn't matter how good it is, it's still regurgitated. It's nothing new and fresh. Why would people care to share it?
Yeah. So what I would say is it's kind of like the last mile when it comes to generating ideas or topics, right? And so what I mean by that is it will get us 70 to 80% of the way there. And what we could do afterwards is we would just edit the titles, right? And so ChatGPT has been helpful. I think the key thing is just relying on it alone is not going to be good enough for your titles. You're going to have to add your own flair into it, and you're going to have to ideally add in some, I think whatever it is that you're talking about, you have to understand what it is. Not I think, I know, right? If you are like, I'm just going to read off some of the headlines over here that we got. So I said, give me 20 catchy marketing podcast headlines for 2023. And so what I got was, get this, here's a streak: marketing for nonprofits, strategies for making a difference, marketing through the pandemic, lessons learned and best practices, marketing with video. And so it just gets lazy, right? And you're gonna have to, kind of adjust your prompts a little bit. But I would just say, if you ask it to come up with 10 or 20 ideas, you're probably going to only see like 3 or 4 that are really good. Just edit those 3 to 4, and then you're going to have enough of a flair to make it unique, and it's going to end up working for you, because that's what has worked for us.
You got to also tie in the experience. If you just use these AI tools to help you come up with title ideas or content ideas, and they lack, quote unquote, making it special by including experience, you're not going to do as well. People want to hear how you've gotten your hands dirty, or how your battle wounds and how you gotten bloody. That's the kind of stuff that makes content amazing, whether it's titles or the actual content that you're producing. And it's really hard from everything that I've tested with these AI tools to come up with that. And what's funny is when we're evaluating these AI tools within our company, we have a list of different industries, and we have like random edge cases that we start testing out to actually see the quality that these tools are producing. And we haven't met one that really is up to par. It doesn't mean that they can't create good ideas or help you write good content, but they're not able to do so in quantity yet in a very consistent fashion from what we've seen.
Yep. So final thing I'll say from my side is when it comes to creating podcast titles, what you can do is you can leverage not just ChatGPT, but there's other tools that are out there that can actually help you with hooks, right? There's actually a tool called TribeScaler. So TribeScaler helps you create hooks for Twitter, but you can basically use these hooks for any form of copyright. Could be for LinkedIn as well. Could be also for podcasts. Because what really matters with your headlines is that you're hooking them. And if you have a catchy headline, if you have a headline that hooks, then it's ultimately going to get the clicks that you're looking for, right? And so when we do these headlines, we're thinking about, okay, what's going to generate clicks, not just on the podcasting side, but also for YouTube. So we have to think about the thumbnail as well. Anyway, you have to think about the game that you're playing, whether it's for YouTube or podcast or whatever. Think about the multiple games that you're playing, and then figure out how you want to craft your strategy there. This piece actually came out about 2 days ago, reported by The Information, which is a nice online tech publication. The reports are basically Microsoft invested about $1.2 billion into OpenAI. So Microsoft owns Bing, the search engine, and then OpenAI, they are the creators of ChatGPT. And so they are basically layering on ChatGPT into Bing. Neil and I want to give some reactions here on whether we think our thoughts on how much this is going to affect Google for the long term. So Neil, you want to start first?
Well, I don't have data on this, but most people use Google. That we already know. What I don't have data on is the index sizes versus Google versus Bing, but I'm assuming Google has a bigger index because they've had a larger head start and they've been doing this for much, much longer. If you think about these AI tools like ChatGPT, what they're doing is they're scraping the web, gathering a ton of data to figure out how to give people better responses. Think of just like even Alexa, right? With Alexa, they're pulling data from the web. And with Google, in theory, having a bigger index, actually, do you want to Google it, Eric, really quickly? Who has a bigger index, Google or Bing?
For sure, Google.
Let's Google it.
How big is Google's index versus Bing's?
What's
Google's
the
index
answer?
is smaller than we think. Google discovered, well, this is a 2020 result. So let's see. There's no direct answer on this, but let me just read this real quick. So Google discovered 130 trillion pages. This is in 2016. And it does show it's exponential, but it doesn't answer the question directly. So I can't answer that question.
Either way, I believe Google's algorithm search engine is much better. I would say that most people agree with that as well, or else it would be
hold on. I got something. Here, let me share my screen real quick. All right. You see this?
Yeah.
So black line is Google. Keep in mind, this data only goes up to 2016. So it's been 8 years since, but you can see this is how far. Substantially bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. It looks like in some of these charts, some of the years is way more than double.
Yep.
So their index is bigger based on this chart that we're seeing. Sometimes it's actually closer to maybe triple the size of Bing's index. Here's the thing. The more data you have, the better you're going to make your AI responses when it comes to ChatGPT or anyone out there. And even if Bing integrates, the whole OpenAI project and has more AI quote unquote type responses and helps people in different ways, eventually when Google rolls it out, I think they'll crush them, and they'll crush OpenAI, not just Bing, because their data is just better. And if you have better data, you can give people better responses. And if you look at Google's algorithm, in my opinion, more people use Google because the results are better, or else we would all be using Bing. And I believe Google is going to do a much better job of giving people the responses they're looking for when they're looking for an answer.
Yeah, so I think this is a pivotal moment for search. And Neil and I were old enough where when we first started using search, it was like Excite, it was like Lycos, it was like all these old search engines.
Alta Vista, Yahoo.
Yeah.
People don't even look at Yahoo as a search engine anymore.
And here's the thing, the product itself on the front end for search is just like, blue links and like a page, right? I think that's going to change quite a bit moving forward. So I think chat's going to become a lot more conversational. So I think this is the beginning. I don't necessarily think Bing's going to win. I think they're going to push Google quite a bit because this is going to force product innovation. So the last couple of years where Google started spinning off all these other things, really at the end of the day, their money printing machine is search, right? That's and they've kind of taken their eye off the ball a little bit. And now they have this red alert, supposedly internally, where it's like, we need to focus on this ChatGPT thing because it might be existential for us. And so Bing's going to push it, right? Microsoft and Google are two of the biggest companies in the world. And so I'm excited to see the product innovation that comes out of this. I don't think Bing's going to win because Microsoft's just doing so many other things as well. Google's core capability, they're going to come back, they're going to bring it back to basics. Competition's going to push them. And I'm glad that competition is back. That's what matters, because it's going to improve the product experience for all of us that are listening to this.
Yeah, and you don't have to be the first mover to win in a market. If you look at a lot of the biggest companies out there, they weren't the first movers. Apple wasn't the first player when it comes to headphones. Apple wasn't the first player when it comes to cell phones. Google wasn't the first search engine. There was the Alta Vistas, the Excites, the Lycoses, the Yahoos, and all these other players before Google came. Facebook wasn't the first social network, nor was TikTok. The point I'm getting at is you don't have to be the first to be the largest and to win. What you have to do is figure out where the gaps are and where people aren't really satisfied, and then fix those issues. Peter Thiel has a speech that I think it's called 0 to 1.
0 to 1's his book. Yeah.
Yeah. And in his speech, he talks about a lot of the biggest players were not the first mover advantage, and people believe that you need to be the first mover to win. And he breaks down how a lot of the winners are actually not the first mover and why.
His big argument in that book is he argues that you should aim to be a monopoly and you should not, yes, competition is for losers or whatever, right? And you could argue that Google kind of is a monopoly in a sense where they own the majority of the market share. And so, they have the number 1 and the number 2 search engines in the world. So, call it what it is. But I think in 6 months, we'll report back on this to see how things are going. But I think things are going to change drastically. SEO as we know it, I believe, is going to change quite a bit, which we'll probably talk about in the future. So anything else?
Well, one last note, the funny thing is when he talks about monopolies, these companies who are monopolies like Google will be like, oh no, Apple has so many cell phone installs and so many computer sales. And then Apple will be like, oh no, Google has so many browser downloads and cell phone sales internationally.
And they complain about it not being fair.
Yeah, and they're not being fair. Like, oh, they have self-driving car. All these companies always look at like their weakest divisions and talk about how they're losing, so they're not a monopoly, when in reality they are.
And then they're all lobbying too to the government. So that's like the game, right? So that's something else we could talk about in the future too. How like lobbying, you look at SBF, like how lobbying was done there. But anyway, that's it for today. Please don't forget to rate, review, subscribe.